As you can see by the title of today's video, I blame travel nurses for making me a millionaire. So if you're tired of that job, working 9 to 5, making somebody else wealthy, let's say you want some extra income to save for that big house or big car purchase, or let's just say that you're just tired of, not having enough savings and you want an extra $500, $1,000, $1,500 a month, this video is for you. Sit back, relax, and let's get into it. So I got into hosting travel nurses a couple years ago, and I do this a multitude of ways. Some ways I own these houses and I house these tenants and they're staying 3 to 4 months at a time. In other ways, and I made this in another video, I use a formula called rental arbitrage where I'm leasing and I rent out to these travel nurses, and again, they're paying on a monthly basis just like a normal tenant. And so that's kind of my backstory when it comes to hosting travel nurses. And due to the profits gained on a monthly basis, they have made me a millionaire. So I think it's important to first start out, how am I actually finding these tenants? And I'm finding these on multiple platforms. Number one being FurnishFinder.com. Think of Furnish Finder kind of like Airbnb, and it's where these traveling healthcare professionals are staying 13 weeks at a time on average, and they're able to reach out to local landlords for housing. And I am a local landlord who so happens to have 30 different available units at all times for these traveling healthcare professionals. And they are staying, again, 13 weeks at a time, and they're paying on a monthly basis, just like a normal tenant would for a 12-month lease. So that's the number one, Furnish Finder. Number two is going to be Turbo Tenant. Turbo Tenant is super easy to use, and you are actually able to kind of blast out to multiple platforms just using Turbo Tenant. So if I were to make a listing on Turbo Tenant, it'll then blast out to about 10 different platforms in which people are looking for housing. That's number two. Number three is going to be Facebook groups. Do not underestimate social media when it comes to marketing for your particular listing, because Facebook groups are going to be local, and there's probably a million different groups that you can post in, meaning in my certain market, it's going to be maybe Indiana local housing or searching for Indiana traveling healthcare professionals. There's all these types of housing groups on Facebook that you'd be surprised and never underestimate. So those are the three main places that I'm blasting my listings, and I'm finding these tenants. 9 times out of 10, these tenants are reaching out to me because there's so many tenants and so many travel nurses who are looking for housing in your market, especially if there's a lot of major hospitals in that area. I promise that this market is super underrated and you need to take advantage. So the number one way in which I'm going to determine if it's actually a great place to host is if there's a lot of major hospitals in the area. Usually within a 10 to 15 mile radius, if you can get a house or an apartment to rent in that area within a 10 to 15 mile radius, you are golden. And I promise you that there's going to be a lot of travel nurses heading your way looking for housing. One of the main questions that I get from my mentees is, so Jeremy, once I have someone interested, they reached out to me directly, how do I actually close them? And you're going to want to listen up. Let's take Furnish Finder, for example, and I'm using Furnish Finder because most other websites are going to be similar. So think of Furnish Finder like the middleman. They're going to be playing matchmaker between the guest and me, the host, or the landlord. And once Furnish Finder does their job in playing matchmaker, they are done away with, and now the guest is in constant communication with me, the host. And after that, let the games begin. Once they message me and show any level of interest, I'm using the first message to ask for their phone number and hopping on a call immediately. The reason why you want to get them on the phone immediately is because sometimes things can be lost in translation through a whole bunch of text message threads, and you just want to cut all that out and you just want to get them on the phone so that you can finally close the deal. Honestly, think of this like a car dealership. You're not going to walk into a car dealer unless you want a car. And same thing when it goes to tenants reaching out to hosts. They're not going to reach out to you if they don't need housing. So a lot of the selling and all that is already done because they need housing. And so you want to let your listing do the selling, and you just need to close the deal with your words. So when I finally get them on the phone, the number one thing I'm starting with is security. Every travel nurse Number one thing is always going to be the safety of the space, the safety of the surrounding areas. So always lead with that because that can kind of put them at ease for the rest of the conversation. After I have them at ease and they are aware that the building and or house and the area is safe, I'm then leading into the amenities that they may have. So they may have access to a pool. They may have access to a gym. They may have access to a cafe lounge. Make sure that you're putting all of the access amenities out there at the forefront of the conversation because these are selling points that they may not have versus your competition. After the amenities, I'm going to what they have access to outside of the house or the complex, like restaurants, things to do around the city. These are all selling points because keep in mind, these people are traveling across the country to be in your particular city. And they want to know outside of work, am I going to have any types of things to do that are close by? Huge selling point. And make sure again that this is at the forefront of the conversation. Next, I'm diving deep into any fees that may be added, such as pet fees, parking fees, maintenance fees, cleaning fees. 9 times out of 10, these travel nurses are expecting some type of fees to be added on. So you do need to discuss this prior to them coming on board. That you've gotten through the hardest part of the conversation, you need to explain how you're going to be collecting payment and what is going to be due to secure the space. So for me personally, I require first month rent and a security deposit that is refundable. I emphasize refundable because I do give that right back at the end of their stay as long as there's no damage done to the property. But in the event that there is damage done to the property, I do withhold some of that security deposit, if not all of it. So those are the 2 things that I require to secure the space. While securing that space, I do accept payments through Venmo, Zelle, and Cash App. So be sure to explain this over the call because this is how you'll be accepting the payments. Venmo, Zelle, Cash App are preferred. I do accept credit card at a 4.5% charge. I use the Square platform for that. There's plenty other platforms that you could use, but those are my personal favorites. Wrap up them coming on board. Lastly, I do require a signed lease agreement from both parties. So the lease agreement will lay out everything that me, the host, and the tenant discussed on the phone, including all fees, etc., so they can see everything laid out and their tenant rights moving forward. So I do have them sign that, and as well as myself. That comes electronically. I use DocuSign for that. Super easy. It'll come up right on their phone. I automatically receive a notification once they sign that. Super easy. Then it's done. First, they sign the lease agreement. Then they pay. Then the space is theirs. No one else can rent it out. Now that you've told them how they can pay, they've signed the lease agreement. I then, in the call I send a novel of check-in instructions 2 days prior to check-in. It'll be a novel laying out how to get into the property. And from there, I do have a property manager who will handle them after they move in. So I am the one that is leading them all the way up to the move-in date. And then after that, the property manager will handle anything else, such as maintenance requests, or let's say they want to extend for another term, they will let the property manager know, and everything else is handled by them. And they would still, I always tell them, they'll still pay me as normal via Venmo, Zelle, or Cash App. But outside of that, anything and everything is handled by the property manager. I have found success with 1 bedroom, 1 baths if it's an apartment that I'm leasing out through rental arbitrage. And for homes, I've found sweet spots in 3 bedroom, 1 baths. Not too crazy when it comes to maintenance. And keep in mind, these travel nurses are usually traveling with 1 or 2 people tops. So a 4 to 5 bedroom house may not always be what they're looking for. I found in this space, the smaller of the space, the better, because again, from a rental standpoint, they're only traveling with 1 or 2 people. Another big question I get from my mentees, well, how much does it actually cost to get started in this business? That's going to be heavily varied on if you own the property, how many bedrooms it has, how many bathrooms it has. If it's rental arbitrage and you're just leasing this out and running a business out of this space, is it a 1 bed, 1 bath? Does that space require a security deposit, etc.? So that's going to weigh heavily on your particular business model. But I will say, most of the time, I am profiting anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a month per unit, whether that be an apartment complex or a house on average. With these travel nurses, especially because 9 times out of 10, these travel nurses are coming to make great money in your city. And another thing, they have stipends that will pay for their housing most of the time. So they don't mind paying a little bit more for housing if it fits their needs. Hosting travel nurses is something that I will probably never stop doing. Unfortunately, people will always be sick, and there is a big shortage in the healthcare space. So travel nursing has been around for a long time, and it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon. And it's up to us and me and you here to take advantage of this and host these travel nurses, treat them right. And I promise you, they're going to tell 10 people the good word and how you can also scale your business that way. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This is exactly how you get out of the rat race and level up.